morning, Ms. Hoffman's class. So today is Wednesday's lesson for week 5. It's called Red Cedars and Grizzly Bears. Really quickly, I want you to listen through this video, and then because of your craft for today, you're going to come back through a second time, and you can listen to it a second time while you do your craft. So I'm going to pause during this and then talk about the craft, but if it's your first time listening through, just continue on through. Alright. After Lewis and Clark sent some of the team back east with reports and scientific samples for President Jefferson, the captain and the rest of the crew continued west. They rowed in 2 of the original pyros, plus 6 new canoes made from hollowed out trees. These canoes, about 30 feet long and 3 feet wide, were hard to balance. More than once, as the men were getting used to them, the canoes overturned in mid-river, forcing the men to fish out wet supplies before going on. So if you can imagine this is our first point where you might want to draw something for the craft for today. What would that look like if you could see these 6 canoes and 2 pyros overturning in the middle of the river? Despite this, Lewis wrote in his journal that the men were happy and healthy. Soon, they left the flat plains and entered the hilly land. Now, the Missouri River became more difficult to travel. Forests of the western red cedars lined the banks of the river. These beautiful trees were so important to the Native Americans of the area that some of the Native Americans called themselves the people of the red cedar, performing special ceremonies before chopping down the huge evergreens. So an evergreen tree is one that remains green all year long. So we have a lot of evergreens in Colorado. If you've ever noticed, they don't turn yellow in the fall like a lot of the other trees. So this is the second time where you can think about, what would the red cedars look like? These don't look particularly red, but if you want to draw them red, you can. Lewis and Clark knew it would be impossible to take an entire tree back with them because of its gigantic size. It's almost 200 feet above the ground. That's as tall as a 20-story building. Nevertheless, the tree was so important to the lives of the Native Americans that they knew they must gather samples and record its many uses. They drew pictures and collected branches, cones, and seeds. So what do you think a seed like this kind of tree would look like? You can use it as one of your drawings. As they learned more about the western red cedar from the Native Americans in the area, both Lewis and Clark wrote about the importance of the red cedar in their journal. The people and the animals of the Northwest relied upon the tree for their existence. The Native Americans used the bark of the tree to weave baskets, mats, and clothing, and used the wood to build canoes. Elk ate the leaves and shoots of the enormous trees. Bears hibernated or slept through the winter in the hollow cedar logs. So if you want to imagine the idea of a bear sleeping inside of a hollow cedar log for a tree, you can do one of that as your pictures. And you can see the size of these things compared to the 3 people that are here. The men heard often of the bears, called grizzly bears, that made their homes in the hollowed out logs of the cedar. So as they made their way up the Missouri, William Clark warned, keep a sharp eye out for grizzly bears. One of the hunters said, "Don't worry, Captain. We've seen plenty of bears before back in Kentucky." So this is a grizzly bear here. Black bears, right here. Yes. Grizzly bears? No. From what I hear, it's like the difference between a house cat, so a house cat, and a lion. So does Captain Clark think the grizzly bears are like black bears or not like black bears? One day, Lewis and another man were out hunting along the riverbanks. Suddenly, they saw two giant grizzly bears ahead. The bears rose on their hind legs up and up until they stood 8 feet tall. I assume that Lewis and Clark, because the average height of a person is about 5'11", 5 feet 11 inches tall. So that means these bears are more than 2 feet taller than the men are. Then, roaring, the bears charged, rushing, raising their rifles and taking careful aim. Lewis and his companion shot one of the bears, but the other kept on coming right at them with frightening speed. "Run!" Lewis shouted, and the two men turned and ran for their lives. Lewis and the other man stopped running to take another shot, turned, took aim, and fired. At the same instant, the loud bang was followed by a tense moment as the bear suddenly stopped running. It held still for a moment, and then it toppled over. So it means they killed both of the bears. Only when they were sure that the grizzly bear was dead did Lewis and his companion carefully approach the animal. Lewis later wrote in his journal that the bear weighed between 500 and 600 pounds and was 8.5 feet tall. That's taller than 2 first graders standing on top of each other. After this frightening chase, Lewis told the whole party, "From now on, we must always move about and do even the simplest actions in parties or groups of 2 or more. One man alone going up against a grizzly would not stand a chance." So, which task of the 3 tasks that they were required to do by President Jefferson did Lewis and Clark complete in this story today? What was one of the plants that Lewis and Clark discovered? And what was one of the animals that Lewis and Clark discovered from this chapter? Alrighty, everybody. Go back through with your craft and listen to the story and think about some moments where you could draw the image that you imagine you would have seen. Have a great day.